One has to wonder how much more suffering do American kids have to experience before every single parent in America wakes up and says, no more. I will not stand idly by. I will do everything I can to fight against evil for good.
So the Quad Interviews is in LA this week, and I'm so privileged to be here with a real giant. Marissa Streit is the CEO of PragerU. Thank you so much for talking to us.
Thanks for calling me a giant. I'm usually the smallest person in the room.
Yes, but you know what I mean. Marissa, you are much more than the CEO, because in fact, PragerU, which is a giant, started, I understand, in your kitchen, and you are known as the chief troublemaker.
Yes, I'm the chief troublemaker, and I think like many great things, PragerU started in my kitchen.
Tell me about that.
Well, Alan Estrin came up with this idea. Alan Estrin is the producer of the Dennis Prager radio show, and he had worked with Dennis for 30 years. And he came up with this idea that Americans and the rest of the world need to hear more of Dennis's ideas and more important ideas. And the internet is that slingshot. That's the way to get the information out there. And so while Alan really conjured the concept of using short videos to educate the public, he looked for somebody who could help get that out there, could actually really execute the mission. And so I remember Alan calling me into a meeting with Dennis Prager. It was the first time that I met them through a joint friend of ours.
You were an educator, right?
I ran a school K through 8th grade. I was an educator here in Los Angeles. Yeah. And my heart was always in truth. I was always, I hate bullies. I love truth. I don't like being lied to. And I already saw a lot of the lies. And so I was that perfect person to tap into, you know, they really tapped into my heart with this idea that we can educate better. And we met at a cafe in Glendale, which was where the Dennis Prager radio show took place. And Alan and Dennis worked for the radio show. And they met with me and they said, Marissa, we're looking for our own George Washington. We need a general without an army. And we are looking to you to build this army of PragerU, where people can fight for truth and defend truth. Would you be willing to do it? And it was kind of like many new businesses. We're typical entrepreneurs. We didn't quite know where it's going to go, but we had a general vision that repair needs to be made and people need to hear truth. And so we just got started one step at a time. And they handed me a laptop, and they handed me one of the most precious things that Dennis Prager had, which is his name and reputation.
And his brain.
And his brain. And I continued to work with Alan Estrin and Dennis Prager over the years. And eventually we migrated out of my kitchen because there was no room. Now we have 180 people working for PragerU. And the story just started with small steps that led to this behemoth.
Small steps with an incredible vision. So tell us how big, or the reach of PragerU today for our audience? Because I think we've all heard the brand is very strong. I don't think people quite understand the real difference that it makes.
So last year we reached about 2 billion views online. We had garnered 28 million unique visitors to our website. We have an email list of 6 to 7 million subscribers. And I think those are numbers that are actually smaller than the real numbers, because what I know, and I'm totally okay with, is that people take our videos and share them through WhatsApp and through other vehicles. And we don't mind. For us, ROI, return on investment, really is return on influence. And so anybody that likes our videos, I know that in Israel, for example, people will take our videos and translate them into Hebrew.
Yes, they do.
And we're totally fine by that. We see that as a blessing. Go ahead and just take our videos and share them. So the viewership has been very humbling, to say the least.
It's incredible. And I think since, I of course, I knew of your work way before, but I think since October 7th, 2023, your work has become crucial, vital, because nobody expected that after the worst massacre of Jews since the Holocaust, the next day, instead of the whole world going, oh my God, Islamic jihadi fundamentalism is a real problem, it was almost like permission for people to hate Jews. And that's when I think Dennis's education of the public and doing it in a short way, short clips, was so valuable. What's happened in PragerU since October 7th?
So PragerU viewership continued to really grow and skyrocket every year. And I think different people have different wake-up moments to truth. For some of us, it was the world of education. For some Americans, it was the lockdowns. And for some Jews, it happened to be October 7th. And we, of course, we welcome everybody into the world of truth. And it's sad that it had to be a moment of so much pain for the Jewish community to see what our education system in America was, really doing, what it was propagating, this hatred towards Western civilization. I believe Israel is the great defender, the Iron Dome of Western civilization, because the jihad is the first attack on the Israelis and the Jews, but they start with the Saturday people and then they continue to the Sunday people. And as Americans, many of us are aware of it, but I think we saw that even more so with October 7th, where while the attacks were taking place in Israel, you saw many of the attacks here on college campuses in America. And suddenly the Jews realized and woke up and say, well, wait a second, when bad things happen in Israel, bad things happen to the Jews around the world too. And this is something that we were saying for a long time, but sadly, we had to actually experience it in real life here and in the diaspora.
I completely agree. I think it changed everything. But you as an educator, a lot of people talk about what's going on in schools. We saw what goes on in colleges, but also K through 12 seems to be a real concern. Do you think now that something's actually materially going to change after the, Trump now getting into office and taking the bull by the horns about education? How long is it going to? You saw the poison. Could we flesh that out?
One has to wonder how much more suffering do American kids have to experience before every single parent in America wakes up and says, no more, right? No more lowering of educational standards every year. No more allowing the teachers' unions, the NEA and the AFT to be the biggest bullies in America. I call them the biggest bullies in schools. How long before parents say, no more the government coming in and taking my parental rights? How bad does it need to be? And I mean, you tie that to the October 7th experience for the Jewish people. How bad do people need to suffer before they realize that every single one of us has to take action to defend what matters to us and not rely on others to do the fighting for us? There's a story that I love to share when people ask me, why do I do what I do? Where do I get my courage and even just the stamina to keep waking up every morning and fight on every front for what I believe is goodness? And for me, it actually started in Israel. I was an American. I was born and raised here and still am an American, moved to Israel, and I was raised there. And when I was about 13 years old, the school actually took me to Yad Vashem, the Holocaust Museum in Jerusalem. And I was a teenager. I remember walking through the exhibit at the Holocaust Museum, and I could not utter a word. I just saw the emaciated people and the little shoes and the hairbrushes and the images. It was incredibly difficult to walk through. It's very, very difficult. And I made it to the end of the exhibit, and there was a docent there standing by the door where there was a light. And I walked up to the docent and I said, how could this happen? Why didn't anybody stop it from getting so bad? Did nobody fight back? And the docent looked at me and said, young lady, most people rely on others to do the fighting for them. And most people don't start fighting until it's too late. And I made a promise to myself in my early teens to never be that who waits for others to do the fighting for me. And so when it comes to warning Americans, Jewish Americans, against anti-Semitism that has come in this new form of anti-Zionism and anti-Israel, or when it comes to warning parents in America against big government taking your parental rights, I will not stand idly by. I will do everything I can to fight against evil for good.
That's why you're a warrior. So, Marissa, do you think we've turned the corner? Let's think about the American educational system. I know what goes on in colleges, and that might take a little longer to flush out. But in terms of your area, K through 12, do you think that now that corner, you said, I say the same thing as you. How bad do things have to go? Somebody asked me this weekend, I was in a conference, and somebody said, what do you think is going to happen to anti-Semitism in America? And I said, things always get really bad until they start getting better. The question is, are we there yet? Have we hit the lowest we can go? Has America hit the lowest it can go educationally wise, or has the corner now been turned?
I don't know that the population is aware enough. This is what we try to do here at PragerU, is actually bring awareness. And I think that there is so much misinformation online, and there are many people who have huge incentives to make sure that Americans do not wake up. Last year, the Department of Education, the Federal Department of Education in America, spent $268 billion. And where did it get us? Nowhere. But as you could see, there are people who have a huge incentive to continue spending and making that kind of money. And the money is not making it to the children. Yeah. So I think we have a big mountain to climb in waking America up, because there's massive gaslighting. And I think that some people are waking up. And you may not need the entire population to wake up in order to bring change. Usually you can bring change with a small group of warriors who really know what they're doing. Yeah. And I think we're starting to see some of them. The warriors are being galvanized. The right people are coming into the picture. And I think some people are feeling a strong godly calling to do more than what they've done before, because there's so much at stake.
It's very interesting that PragerU was almost ahead of the curve, because you started doing these, let's call it education entertainment. Or
Edutainment. Yeah.
Entertainment, right. These small clips to educate people. Well, I actually think that that's the only way people are getting educated these days. So it might as well be with good content based on truth than the lies that they're getting with other, spurious people with spurious agenda, like other countries trying to infiltrate.
Yes.
And so I think that you guys really were ahead of the curve. Where do you go from here? You've built something incredible. What's the future looking like for PragerU now that you've become more relevant than ever?
Well, I think you bring up a very important point, which people underestimated the power of social media and the short clips. And I remember trying to warn people that social media is a new frontier for the war and for propaganda. And people would dismiss, saying, well, what can you really do with a 5-minute video or a short clip or all these young influencers, who even cares? But if you watch what happened with October 7th, the Iranians were ready. Yeah. They were ready with an entire propaganda war machine online, so that if you posted anything pro-Israel, you would get a swarm of bots and really accounts from outside of America posting on American influencers, the watermelon sign, which was a symbol of Hamas, or just pure hate and threats towards anybody that sides with Israel. Yeah. And many people said, where did this come from? Are these American students that are posting these? And the more you looked into it, I mean, there's been evidence that there's close to 60,000 bots that were created by the Iranians to actually post on social media these anti-Israel, super inflammatory comments in order to just propagate this concept that it is Israel that is the oppressor, not the actual terrorists who raped and killed and murdered babies.
Yes, to invert the truth, essentially.
Right.
They were ready.
The social media is another frontier. And so when you ask, where do we go from here? We need to understand that the world is constantly changing. And while history may rhyme, allegedly, we have to really listen to in what ways things are going to repeat themselves and what are the new ways to fight against that. It may not all be the same as it was in the past, right? Now we have social media, now we have AI, now we have new ways of informing the public. Even long form sit-down interviews, that's a new thing.
Absolutely.
And so we've got to be creative. Yes. So that's the thing about PragerU. I view us as a technology company. We know what our vision is. Our vision is to tell the truth, to educate the public, to provide ways for for self-empowerment so that people can build their own discernment and not fall into the traps of lies. And how we get there, we have to be willing to wiggle and turn and really lean on whatever new technologies are out and available to us in order to accomplish that. And that's not always easy because it means you have to constantly change systems and pay a lot of attention and rewrite your business plan as a CEO. It's not that easy to rewrite your business plan every time. Yeah. And it can get a little uncomfortable, but we're living in a very fast changing world and we just have to stay ahead of the game.
I totally agree with you. And I think that in a way, the last election, Trump winning was a referendum of where the future is going to go. Is it going to go down this spiral rabbit hole of woke, where people are basically learn to control their thoughts and you can't say anything that's uncomfortable to anyone else? Or are we going to lean into really the future of humanity, which is just, if we disagree, just finding that safe space to disagree? And so I'm hoping that the future is looking a lot brighter. And I'm hoping that you feel the same way with the work that you do here and what you see here.
I certainly feel very excited about where things are going. I think that we're going to see hard times and we're going to see beautiful times. And that's what life is at the end of the day, right? There's going to be a bit of both. Whether I'm pessimistic or optimistic, it kind of doesn't matter. If you're optimistic, as Dennis would say, people feel like they don't really need to fight so much because they're optimistic. And if you're pessimistic, then people would say, well, you know, everything's going to go downhill, so why even make the effort? But if you say it doesn't matter whether you're optimistic or pessimistic, know the truth and be willing to fight for it, that is what drives me every day. Not where things are going or where things may go, but where things should go and what the truth is. That's what animates me.
Well, we're very, very blessed to have such an incredible platform and such an incredible leader, for me also a female leader, that can lead that charge, and that is basically leading the storytelling of truth, of real truth. Everybody admires Dennis, but I think that you have had a huge part to play, and I'm really grateful for you, for the work that you do, for sticking up for truth and for fighting every day. Thank you so much, Marissa.
Thank you. It's a great pleasure, and thanks for the kind words.